This is an SM Media production. Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rangers Assessment, your exclusive SM Media Rangers podcast. I am Scotland Pike. It's a pleasure as always to be your host. Before we get into welcoming our guest and talking about the Cup semi-final and what's been happening, people will be saying, Scott, you've not done a Rangers pod for a few weeks. You've been hiding from what's been going on in the Rangers world. It's not been that. There's just been a lot going on with other things in the channel. And I've finally been able to get this organised. It is a pleasure to welcome my guest this week, one of my favourite people to talk about Rangers with. It is a pleasure to welcome Robert Clark. Robert, probably a better week this week to come on than it would have been potentially this time last week. But things are a lot better than they were, say, just even 4 days ago.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, that's hopefully rejuvenates the dressing room. It's certainly rejuvenated most of the support, and we just need to get into the home stretch now and try and make a fist of it.
Right. I can be very critical, right? I've admitted that in the past, so especially about Rangers, because I view Rangers very differently to how I view other things, because I have followed this journey for my whole life. I have looked at Rangers and I'm exposing my true colours here. We know that. We know where I fall on the spectrum. We know that. Where I find it very hard in the past couple of weeks to look at is that when people say about this core need to go, Rangers need to move with the times, Rangers need to look at to be a real force to challenge Celtic long term, it's time there's changes made from top to bottom in the squad. Where I find it very difficult, Robert, is we have been saying this probably the past 3 years. Nothing's changed. There's been wee changes. There's been small movements of let's take this player out and bring this player in, and it hasn't worked. We saw this summer. We could do, I think in 5 years' time, we can do a documentary series in Rangers recruitment in 2023, because it was probably the worst summer I think Rangers have ever had in terms of signing players for what they were fitted to do. But you also need to look at it from another point of view. Philippe Clement has come in to a mess of a situation, absolutely transformed the fortunes and put Rangers in a position where they can challenge for a title. But there's also part of you going, this squad can do this. And it doesn't matter if it's Pep Guardiola, if it's Arrigo Sacchi, if it's any manager in world football. This squad will let the manager down. They will let the fans down. But I thought yesterday was a bit of a swing in the right direction, because I think last season that's probably another defeat. And I think the manager makes a massive call that we'll get into. I think the manager deserves a lot of credit. I think he deserves some blame. I don't think he deserves all. I think that the blame supersedes him mostly. But in terms of the situation Rangers are in, Rangers are not out of this title officially. We find it difficult to say Rangers are going to go and win the league because we've been to that road before. But looking at it now, kind of taking a step back, Rangers are in a better position than we probably gave them credit for last week.
Listen, there's two parts to your question. The first part is obviously regarding, the nucleus of the squad, and I think sentiment's got a large part to play, but I also think fear as well. That when you mention to MD, let's get rid of Goldson or let's get rid of Tavernier, they always come up with the argument, you'll miss them when they're gone. And albeit we may do that, but certainly,
yes.
I'll take Connor Goldson in isolation. Been at the club, 6 years now? It's not like we're giving him 6 months and saying get out the door. He's had a good run at it. And I just think the club has lost bigger and better players than Connor Goldson and replaced them. You can't sit and wonder, what will be if we get rid of them and it goes wrong. You've got to jump into it and, as you say, move on. Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, they all build sides, dismantle sides and rebuild sides, and we seem to have just hung on to players for that wee bit too long. I feel when you see that with Connor Goldson, especially this season, where he's maybe, since his injury, lost a yard or two of pace, ended up in trouble. The last couple of weeks in particular, defence, we've been praising the defence since Clement came in. best defence in the league, and then you ship 6 goals in 2 games, go up to Dens and put on a strange performance as well. So I think Sunday was more of a more like it, should I say, as I say, rejuvenates the dressing room somewhat. Certainly the fans seem more up for it. We'll talk about the team selection and how that affected us before kick-off, but I seen more positives. I seen us playing for the Lions. I seen us playing it a wee bit quicker in places to what we have been the last few weeks. So I certainly hope we can take that and run with it, because we're now under real pressure to if not get the league, it needs to be a cup double, or else it's going to be a pretty poor season.
What do you think, though, in terms of, like, we're not going to run through every game that's happened over the past. There's 2 games against Benfica that I think are a bit of a microcosm, because Benfica are a very good opposition, and I think going out of the Europa League is probably not the worst thing to happen to Rangers this season. Motherwell I look at as a strange game, because that was a game where you win, you play really well against Hearts, you win 5-0 at home, and then you go to Kilmarnock and it's a complete reversal in terms of performance, but you get the result. Then you play Motherwell and you're thinking, right, out of 3, that's the one you're thinking 3 points looks fairly sorted, and it's just an abysmal performance. And then Hibs away is a bit of a nothing game as well, get the result. Hibs at home was fine as well. Celtic was just a bizarre game of football that first half, Rangers were atrocious, and then second half pick up, somehow walk away with a point. And then you mentioned, obviously, Ross County and Dundee are just 2 absolute nonsense performances, in all honesty, and you just give away the initiative, and that's what this team do. And I look back, the one game that always sticks out for me with this squad, and what I don't mean this squad specifically, all 11 players, because we know it's very different in terms of a lot of but the overall kind of nucleus, and I'm talking about like Tavernier, Goldson, players like Barisic will throw in as well. They've had that game a few times at Hearts before the COVID season, Hearts in the Scottish Cup. You're thinking that squad aren't going to win titles. They aren't. They get it the season after in the 55 season. But this squad, probably a similar comparison, and I don't know if you're an NBA fan, Robert, but I am. The Golden State Warriors, for our NBA fans out there, the Golden State Warriors are in the kind of similar situation where you can see they're reaching a stage where they can't go any further. But it's looking at the point of view going, right, how do you do this as delicately as possible? They won 4 championships. This Rangers squad have won 1. They've won 3 trophies. There's a difference. There is a big difference, in my opinion. And that's an issue to me, is that this nucleus, I don't think, can go any further at Rangers, and I'm including Tavernier in that, despite his brilliant numbers he's put up in terms of output. He's not going to be. This isn't a dynasty. That's what I keep saying to people. You look at that squad. Celtic winning 9 in a row. They kept their squad too long, but you can look at that as they had the trophies to back that up. They won 4 trebles, for God's sake. Let's not kid ourselves here. That squad deserved to go for 10 in a row. It just didn't work out. This Rangers squad don't have that silverware to go, they deserve another chance. They've had chances too many. I've seen people at the start of the season saying Bonner deserves a new deal. Bonner should have never been even close to earning it. Lundstrom a few weeks ago, you'd have said yes. I thought he has looked very leggy as the season went on, probably due to the run of games, but I also think he's reached that point where I don't think he can be part of a progressive Rangers side. Goldson's probably another one. Tavernier's probably the only one of the 4 you would say his body of work deserves his place. Goldson, for me, I would have gave Goldson a new deal when they did. So I think this squad reached the end of a peak. I think they're way beyond it now, and I don't think there's anybody saying they deserve another shot. Like, they don't, to me anyway.
Scott, you ran off a list of games there: Benfica, Motherwell, Hearts. But let's be brutally honest, the measure of Rangers teams is against Celtic. You know, that's where it comes in.
Yeah.
And then you feed that into the likes of Tavernier, Goldson, John Lundstrom. These guys have not been able to cope with Celtic. Let's be honest. I think John Lundstrom's played 13 Old Firm games in his time at Rangers, and he's only won 2 of those. And I think that one of which he's gone to extra time. you look at James Tavernier, every time he steps on the pitch against Celtic, just looks like that, you know, he's beaten before he gets on there mentally. So these things all feed in. You said, how do you deal with it delicately? I don't think you can. I think you need to go in just with a wrecking ball and start ripping things out. I think we've got a midfield already at the club. I would say for next season, I'd probably go Sterling, Diamande, and you've got Cantwell as well. But then it's the defensive line, I think, needs you know, starting again, and you know, forward players as well. You've got players on loan, and you know, we'll talk about Cyril Dessers later on. So I just think there's so much work to do in the summer, and it feeds back into what we said before about winning the title. You know, Celtic aren't going to be this bad next season. Let's not make no bones about it. We've let them off the hook. We've let Brendan Rodgers off the hook massively. To get back into a position, have it in your own hands. You rhyme off Motherwell, Ross County, Dundee. There's the guts of 8 points. It's unforgivable, really. But hey ho, we're in this position. We've got to try and go and win it for not only for the title, for the pot of money that it brings, because the squad needs surgery. And where are you going to get the funds from if you finish second to Celtic?
I think Old Firm games are really hard to assess, because I came out of that 3-3 game thinking and kind of covering it as best I can from a neutral perspective. I thought Celtic were brilliant first half, the way they pressed Rangers. I thought they were just very, very good. Probably the best Celtic have been all season. But the thing with a Celtic side that we know is they can get leggy. And that's where Rangers were able to capitalise. Rangers passing, Rangers ball retention is as bad as you'll ever see. The only club worse than Rangers at giving away cheap shots and cheap up is Man United. It's the only club I can think of that can pass in terms of losing cheap passes and losing cheap goals. But I think it shows a lot for Rangers. What I didn't like was somehow celebrating a 3-3 draw and doing a lap. I didn't like that. It's not for me. You do that if you win the game. Big bugbear I had with Gerrard when he went to Parkhead and won 1-2-1. You don't do that at that point. You do that when you have the momentum. The momentum, you can argue, has probably never been with Rangers in terms of since they've been back up. The only time is the COVID season, but the fans weren't there. And that's maybe harsh on my part, saying Rangers won the title because there was no fans. I think there was a lot less pressure that season. And a pessimist like me looks at the 2 cup games that season in St Johnstone and St Mirren and think that squad had everything going for them and couldn't win a treble. That's maybe unfair, that's maybe harsh, but that to me is another genesis of this Rangers problem, that they've had so many chances. Do you know what I mean? They've had so many chances to show what they can do. I mean, I'll go back. There's 2 things that stick out. Tavernier's programme notes after the Hibs game. Do you remember they lost in the... Was it Hibs at home or Hamilton at home? I can't remember if it was. I think it was Hamilton at home. He said that we are very different in Europe to we are in the league. And then Goldson, the match where Gio's in the director's box at Hampden, saying that we've lost our hunger. They're 2 lines that have never really sat well with me. Those players have thought that at points in their Rangers career. And the fact that they've even had that thought to begin with suggests to me that they're not... You don't imagine, and I know it's maybe lazy to say, you don't imagine a John Gregg or a Terry Butcher or a Richard Gough saying that. You would have probably get flung out of Ibrox for even having that creeping thought. Not to put it in a programme, but when you're captain. I think a lot of people look at Tavernier very differently than they do the other players because he has that body of work. Do you know what I mean? I think a big problem with Rangers over the past few years from an attacking output is Tavernier's been the main talisman. You can't rely on your right back. You can't. That's not how you win titles. It's okay the odd game. Rangers top goal scorer probably the past 4 or 5 seasons in terms of output has been Tavernier. That's not a good look for who's been brought in. This season's probably worse than ever because of the strikers that were brought in to do the job. But I think that's another problem as well, is that Clement, and I think Clement deserves a lot of credit for coming in and getting a tune out of these players and being able to kind of really emphasise a real difference in culture, because let's be honest, Robert, we spoke about Beale. I think you were on a couple of times as well. What Clement inherited was probably as bleak a situation as Rangers in a Premiership has been. in terms of, I mean, there was no emphasis on like injuries. For a start, injuries have been an absolute shambles this season as well, just probably worse than they've ever been. Like, there was no training system. Do you know what I mean? There was no system in terms of training players. Like, players were in the same program as players 15 years older than them. But there was no. The club was broken when Beale came in, and I see off the field a real improvement. I see Coppin doing work. I think the summer recruitment, the winter recruitment, I beg your pardon, was very, very good in terms of the profile Rangers were looking to bring in. If I can see that more in the summer, I think there's a really good side to what's coming in terms of Coppin and Clermont. But to do that, I think you need. Ange did it at Celtic his first season. It took a bit of time for it to work, but he blitzed aside. I mean, there was only two players that survived, McGregor and Taylor, from that Celtic side that was broken. Clermont's going to need to do the same thing, and I think Sunday was that first step, because he could have just said, right, I'm playing Goldson, he's my vice captain, he's the perfect guy for this type of situation. But in my opinion, he did the right thing, because I think Goldson needed taken out the firing line more than anybody, because he has been awful recently.
Just to come back to the start of your question there,
I'm going in a long haul, but it's been a long time.
See if somebody just jumped into the podcast at that point, they'd think they were back in 2020, because we're having the same conversation.
That's what I'm going at. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, yeah. And then you come on to Clermont and Coppin in the recruitment, and the recruitment in January was great. Diamandi, who is Michelin, have got a history of selling these young players on for vast profit, and they're going to have great careers. I mean, you look at Mohamed Kudus at West Ham, I think he was product of that as well. So there's definitely that's to be applauded. However, what I'll caveat that by saying is you're looking forward to a summer window and what's going to come in. Philippe Clermont's got a game against Celtic at Parkhead, a game against Celtic at Hampden, and then his first game of the new season of an Old Firm is going to be at Parkhead as well. He could begin into New Year, under real pressure if those results don't go well. And I know you're smiling there, and I'm no one as well to be talking about sack managers, because I hate that. That's not for all club that we've been. But the support won't stand for it, because that's the measuring stick. See if you get to, if you can have all the nice windows you want and bring in these lovely players, but see if you can't get near Celtic, what's it all in aid of? So that's what worries me there slightly. But listen, that's maybe a conversation for the summer. Just to come on to Goldson and dropping him, really bold, and it was
really bold.
It was needed because you saw up at Dens, he looked well off it. Not sharp. I alluded to the point earlier. I don't know if he was rushed back pre-season. He didn't really seem to have a pre-season. Michael Beale started him in the first game, and we hadn't seen him at that point. So there was question marks there, certainly. I don't think he's looked the same player. You mentioned giving him a new contract. I think he sort of hung about to see if anybody wanted him before he signed on that dotted line as well, which I think's something that should be taken into account. So Leon Balogun, I think, was treated harshly in the sense that he got his injury. Now, that night up at Dens, we won 5-0. He came in and looked, resurgent. He looked at just what we needed at the back. And certainly, he got his injury at the wrong time. And there was all this talk if he was going to wear a mask and be fitted for a mask. I don't think we've seen him in a mask. So he comes back into the side. So I don't know. Again, I have question marks there, but he comes back into the side yesterday and just strolled it. Absolutely strolled it. And I think he'll keep his place for the remainder of the season.
What do you do, though, in terms of this was, should Goldson ever play again? I think that's harsh, because I think he needed taking out the firing line because his performances were really off. And he does have that tendency, if he has one bad game in a row, he could have 6 or 7, but he can go on these wee whips, and then he can put in a performance where it just kind of turns his season round. We've seen that in the past. 55 season, I go back to a game, I'm sure it was a Europa League game. I think it might have been Benfica, actually. He's an absolute stinker, and it just had him in a real kind of 4 or 5 game run where he was really poor. And then he scores. That's right, yeah. And I'm sure that's before, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure that's before the 2-0 win at Parkhead. And he goes to that, scores a double, and it just transforms his season, and he doesn't look back. The good thing with Balogun coming in is, and I was very vocal in the summer, Robert, and we were on the podcast together, and I remember you saying it as well, Bill looked at that summer thinking all I need to do in defence is bring back Leon Balogun. I mean, that's a criminal offence to me. Well, it is, and we see that. I think we're suffering from that now, and especially at left back, as we'll get into. But Balogun is a very serviceable defender, but you can't have. He's not able to play what Rangers need him to. Like, Rangers need Leon Balogun to play 40, 50 games. He's just not able to do that. So it's a really, really tough situation. I'm with you, though. I think Balogun, for me, if he's able to, I think he has to play in all 6 of the next games, because he brings that solidity in there where, like, Suter had a real stinker on Sunday, like a really, really poor game. But you can play Goldson and Balogun together and it's fine. You can play Goldson and Suter and Balogun together and it's usually fine. I don't think Goldson and Suter's worked at all in the past few weeks. So you need Balogun in there just for that bit of knowledge. Yilmaz, I think, was someone who maybe appreciated a Balogun when he was there, just to give him it, because I think Yilmaz's game kicked on when Balogun was there. So having that experienced head, I think, because Goldson, despite having a real load of experience, Goldson needs a guy playing alongside him who can do a lot of the real hard leadership quality. Like Hollander was good at that. Hollander was a good talker. Katic was a good talker as well. Goldson's best partners weren't Goldson and Davis didn't work for me, and that was because Davis was very quiet on the field. Balogun's a good talker. I think Goldson needs that alongside him. Suter isn't very talkative. I think Goldson plays at his best when he's got a Balogun or that type alongside him. I think in the next 6 games, Clermont has to assess what is my best partnership here to avoid what has been Rangers' status quo in terms of losing goals, which is there is always a silly mistake in this Rangers defence. And for the next 6 games, Clermont has to do every single thing in his power to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's going to be the difference between winning a treble and winning one trophy. That, to me, I said all week, go back, you could probably talk to about 100 people that I work with. The week before the Rangers-Celtic game, they were all saying, what will happen in the game? I said, if Rangers avoid a defensive mistake, they will probably win this game. It takes 21 seconds, Robert. 21 seconds before a defensive nonsense. That's Rangers' big Achilles heel, defensive mistakes. So Clermont has to spend the next 6 games avoiding that in all way possible, because that's going to be his difference.
Just on Goldson, this is the first time he's been dropped as such, okay, by any manager. So it's not so much the action that's going to make Connor Goldson, it's the reaction. Can Phil Clermont put him in on Sunday and see him step up? You know, we saw early on in Clermont's tenure, Goldson and Balogun looked the preferred pairing. And they look pretty decent, to be fair. I think it's a pertinent point you make there, actually, about Goldson being not so much a leader at the back, but needing to be led. And I see that. I agree with you there. I mentioned that in a group chat probably about 10 days ago. So I'm firmly on that boat. I think what's gone in Goldson's favour is John Suter's not had the best game at the weekend. And I actually think this might be a sore point, but I think John Suter's probably the most overrated defender we have. I think he done a lot of good at Hearts, but he was very busy at Hearts, where his concentration's got to be a lot better at Rangers. And I just see moments of lapse. You saw that at the weekend there. He gets the ball caught between his feet and Vargas pinches it, and it puts you in danger. So I think Connor Goldson may come back in Paisley at the weekend. I could see that, Goldson and Balogun, and taking Suter out the firing line, but it's got to be settled. We've got to give them a run of games, because there's no time left now to chop and change. It's got to be get your best players on the park, pick a side as if your life depended on it. Do that for the next 6 games, and you'll
it's not. 6 cup finals. It's 6 cup finals. It is.
100%.
It is. And you've got to play those 6 games as if there's no tomorrow, and you do. And that's where I want to kind of come into midfield, because I think we've had the conversation about Lundstrom that I kind of wanted to have. 3 players as well, because I'm going to kind of club Sterling in there, who I think's been terrific at left back. I think he's a better option in there than Borna. I don't think people will be stunned to hear that. People knowing my views on Barisic in the past couple of years. Yilmaz, obviously, I think it's really, really critical he comes back in, because I think he was the player from the second half of the season you thought he's stepping up a gear here. He's the one that's really kicking on. So I think if you can get him back, he could be vital between now and the end of the season. I think Sterling probably has to take that 6 role. I would play Sterling. I would love to see a situation, and I know Clement did a double 6 when he was at Club Brugge. I think if he can somehow get Sterling and Diamandi in there together, I think that's a terrific midfield balance. Now, people will say it's maybe unfair in Lundstram, but I think Lundstram's probably run his race in terms of like full peak fitness. So if you can somehow get Sterling and Diamandi in there, I thought Diamandi when he came in on Sunday was terrific because it just brought that difference. And that's what I wanted when I heard they were linked. And I'd spoken to a couple of people that knew of him, and they'd said like he brings that kind of physicality and kind of box to box prowess that Rangers need. I really think he could be a big player for Rangers going forward. I think he's the perfect profile for a star, but I also think he brings something different to that midfield. He just brings that, and I hate using the word, just brings that industriousness.
Well, he wants to play forward. That's what you want to see for a midfielder. You know, do you know what? To be fair to John Lundstram, right? When Clement came in, I thought Lundstram bought into it. He was moving it quicker, and he was trying to play forward, and he looked successful. But the last few games, he's reverted back to type. He's playing within himself. He's slowing it down. It's side to side. I think Sterling and Diamandi together, they're just two athletes, young guys, big frames. I mean, Sterling's an absolute monster. If you have to play him at left back, then albeit that is a necessity. But you know, in preference, I'd want him in the middle of the pitch. You know, to go back to what I've spoken about in the last 20 minutes, Old Firm games, you know, they're won and lost ordinarily in the midfield. And if you can get Dujon Sterling in there with his athleticism and his guile to win the ball back and break play up, as well as Diamandi, who can actually win the ball, as you saw at the weekend, and play out. And if you can get a Cantwell alongside him, like we saw at the weekend, who's playing freely and he's wanting to drive at defenders, I think that's a worthy midfield that you can hang your hat on.
What do you think about, obviously, a player who I thought was probably his best game of the season so far was Todd Cantwell on Sunday? I thought it was terrific. Absolutely. What do you think about Cantwell? Because I think the big frustration with Cantwell since this season in particular has been he's just not done it enough. I thought Sunday was a perfect example of he can do it, he just needs to do it more often.
I don't know where the consistency comes into it, really. So I kind of see him after the second goal when he was sort of getting the adulation for the goal. You're hoping it's a wake-up call for him in the sense that he knows where he is and he knows the opportunity that he's got here. And if he can play like that, you've got £50,000 every other week. I just think sometimes he gets involved in stuff, tries to maybe do too much. I don't like it when he's coming in too deep. But see, when he's sort of breaking at defenders and he's playing people in, and some of his close control, there was times at the weekend with 3 or 4 players around him, and he was getting in and out, and you know, if in doubt, he wins you a foul as well. So Todd's a great player. On his day, arguably probably the most gifted we've got in the squad in terms of attacking play. So I do think if you can get him fit and firing, he plays ahead of Lawrence for me.
I thought Lawrence as well, I'll give him a bit of credit when he came on as well. He had a really difficult game against Celtic. He came in and he came in on Sunday and just his sub appearance and just he was kind of busting forward as well. He was a couple of good chances. Like he plays in Dessers, and Dessers obviously does what he does, which we'll probably spend the next 10 minutes of the show talking about Cyril Dessers, because I think that's probably a book you could write about him. But
Lawrence, he had this space though to run into at that point of the game.
Yeah.
The game was kind of stretched. Hearts were sitting an hour and a half a lot, and we were breaking on them. So it was nice to see that he's got that in his locker. Certainly, I think in games gone by, he's now been, especially up at Dens, you've seen we were suffocated at times. They had loads of men behind the ball. There wasn't a lot of space to play into. So I think it's going to be one or the other. They don't seem to play together, the two of them. So we'll see how that one develops. But for me, Cantwell's ahead at the moment.
I don't know what we're going to see with Sima in terms of, I mean, I wrote a piece in the channel a few weeks ago. I think Sima could be a difference maker in terms of the title race. Matondo, I'm just not fully convinced he's a starter, to be honest. I think he's got, we saw a few weeks ago, he's got goals in him. I mean, he can score worldies, but there's time where his final ball was just atrocious. Fabio Silva, before we get into Dessers, Fabio Silva, I was really excited about him when he came in January, and I still think there's a player there. I mean, you don't go for 35 million if there's not something about you, and we've seen flashes, but we've also seen some quite ridiculous stuff. I mean, the play acting against Celtic was pathetic, to be honest. And he's got a golden chance on Sunday, golden chance to score. And
what happened?
I don't know, because this is what's frustrating about Silva. There is really good parts of his game. He looks a really intelligent footballer, but there's times where you think there's no brain cell in there, and that's why he's at Rangers and loan. I think that might be, Rangers fans probably won't like me saying that. If he had the IQ, he's probably. I mean, probably the good example is there's probably players that he's played with in Portugal who went on and are now worth double what he was bought for. But they've got the intelligence, they've got the football and ability to kick on to the next level. Fabio Silva just looks to me that he's lacking that. And I mean, Fabio Silva, with his talent, should be coming here and doing what Craig Bellamy did for Celtic, to be honest. Like, he should be coming here and kind of carrying Rangers towards a title. And for one reason or another, mainly kind of footballing IQ, it's just no happening for him. But there's flashes there, and that's the frustrating thing for me. There's times you look at him thinking he's got something, that he is a very, very technically good footballer. There's just something missing, and it seems to be in his head.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. It's a mentality thing, especially after the diving accusations, the diving in the Old Firm game. I don't know if he's checked out from there, because see, when he came on at the weekend, there was two instances. One where Diamande has a shot from distance. I think it just goes wide of the post in the second half, and Diamande could have played Silva in, and Cantwell had to get in between them both to say to himself, just calm down, he's had a shot, it's not been far off. There was another one where Tav goes to take a corner and Silva said to him, I want this kind of thing. So there was, as I say, as you say, mentality questionable. There's no way he stays beyond the summer.
No, absolutely not.
So whatever part he can play, there was also rumblings in the week that, it's in the contract that he's got to start games. Well, it didn't start at the weekend, and I think maybe it's a toss-up between him and Rabbi Matondo. The minute you say Rabbi Matondo can score a couple of goals, and albeit the one against Hibs is a belter, and the one against Celtic's even better, certainly, but he doesn't do it regular enough. He gets into spaces, he gets into opportunities. You saw at the weekend there, and he makes the wrong choice. That final ball's lacking from him. So I dare say I would be looking to ship him out. I've probably said that the last couple of seasons, to be fair. Not been happy with his overall output. And then Sima. Now, Sima's gone off injured. I don't know the extent of that. I don't know if that's come out yet. If he's out for foreseeable, that's a hammer blow, because we saw at the start of the season, real purple patch, so influential. You mentioned the reliance on Tavernier. It looked like Sima taking the mantle. He was enjoying it. He looked 7 foot tall. Every time he stepped onto the pitch, he looked dangerous, albeit raw pace. And sometimes when he got the ball at his feet, he didn't know what he was going to do, but he was so effective with it. So another one up in the air, on loan. Can we afford the fee? Can something be done? The fans have taken to him, that's for sure. And just a wee, so I mentioned as well, to Oscar Cortez, who I think was really unlucky, because he showed. I was at the Hearts game at Ibrox, and I think that's the best we've played all season, by the way. Just to
absolutely terrific.
And he was fantastic that day. Another exciting player, lively, creative, and looking to drive at goal as well. So we've been unlucky and unfortunate. I just hope, as you say, Sima can contribute in the run in here, and it's not too serious.
I thought it was interesting you brought up Cortez there, because I was having this debate with somebody in my work today, and they'd said the same thing. They said, has Cortez done enough to say if he's worth 4 million, go and sign him? Probably in terms of body of work, no. But the difference somebody like him brought to the side in terms of Rangers started the season with no width, absolutely no width. So just for what he's done alone, in terms of the few games he was there, just what he brought in terms of a different feel with that Rangers side, I think for me it's an absolute no-brainer. He has a stick on to come in the summer, because he just brought something so much different and something so refreshing that he needs that. Probably the injury's probably been a massive hammer blow, but to me he's already done enough to say go and sign him, get him in.
Scott, why do you buy a ticket to go to the football? You go there to be entertained and to be on the edge of your seat. And Oscar Cortez does that, doesn't he? Oscar Cortez done that. In the small sampling we saw, every time he got the ball, he felt like something was going to happen. Scored a couple of goals as well. Just again, another one we took to instantly. And I feel like he was taken to the club as well. So I'm hoping something can be done there, because I definitely saw a player in there for sure. just on you personally, do you get any work done at your place? You seem to be talking about
No,
Rangers.
I talk about football a lot. I do. And in fairness, though, like, and this is something I wanted to touch on with you. I think you can make a serious case for Clement that he hasn't been able to play his front four together. Like, I think he looked at that. Probably Danilo's a lot further behind than we thought he was in terms of when Clement came in. I think he would have ideally looked for, because he got a real tune out of Danilo when he came in, to be fair, and then Danilo obviously got hurt. I think he wants Sima, Cantwell, Cortez, and Danilo. And to me, if that front four starts next season, that's a really, really exciting front four. That to me is
full of pace. It's full of power.
Yeah, and Brendan Rodgers has spoke a lot about that. He wants to inject pace and power. Rangers need that more than Celtic, because you go, and they need obviously depth as well. And this is where we'll get into Dessers. But look at Clement's never been able to play his best 11. He's never been able to, because it's just injuries. It's never happened. So I think in terms of the next 6 games, it is just about finding what's best. And on that note, Robert, we'll get to the final part of the side, which is the front man, Cyril Dessers. I mean, where do you start with this guy? Like, Sunday's a perfect example. Sunday in microcosm, he scores 2 magnificent goals, but you leave that game, and he scored a double when rightfully gets man of the match, but you leave that game going, aye, he scored a goal. He scored 2 great goals, but he could have had 5 or 6. And that sees Rangers' career in a nutshell. There's really, really good parts of his game. I think his passing range is terrific. I think his press is very good. But in terms of his time management, in terms of his kind of confidence in front of goal, there's good points and there's bad points. And he's just that enigma that is probably holding Rangers back in terms of, I mean, let's look at this in a different way. If Rangers have Lawrence Shankland, they probably win against Ross County and they win against Dundee. Is that unfair? And I'm not saying Lawrence Shankland was the answer, but that type of player is what Rangers needed.
Listen, you can't see right now, but I've got a Lawrence Shankland poster above my bed, right? That's how bad that was at the club. I thought he was the answer to all our problems come January. The money wasn't there, or you couldn't get anything done. I don't know the ins and outs, but the manager was very clear in terms of funds. But see, when you look at the game yesterday, whether it was Stephen A. Smith or Lawrence's teammates, Lawrence was let down. And if you compare the two strikers, Rangers fed Dessers the chances. I think Shankland had one clear cut, that header. He gets another wee one maybe from Vargas that gets blocked. So I don't know if we can say yes or no. You know, hypothetically, probably Shankland puts the chance away up at Ross County that Dessers misses. Dessers seems to... He scores the goals okay under pressure, and I'm not saying that a semi-final at the National Stadium's, no pressure, but you look at the Celtic game, and then obviously up at Dingwall at 1-0, if he puts that away, you're home and hosed. There's no coming back from that, you don't think? So it's a strange one. To be fair to Cyril, he's the only option we've got. We've had to play him. But, we've tried Fabio Silva in there, no dice. So Dessers is at least put a couple of balls in the back of the net, and I think he's up there with Kyogo in terms of goals for the season, which isn't bad, if you'd said that at the start of the campaign. So to go back to obviously Clement not picking his best team and through injury, you have to remember as well, the Riddle's been upset because of that European squad. He was having to chop and change because of what was going in there. So there's no slant so much on the manager, albeit he got us into a position. We have maybe squandered that. I didn't really agree with his comments post-match at Dens. I thought they were a bit strange given what we'd seen with our own eyes. But he'll be measured in the next 6 games, and obviously what we can do in the summer and moving forward. But I think a striker will be on his mind. He's got the best out of Cyril Dessers that he could, but Cyril Dessers can't carry you through a season like you said. Leon Balogun can't. I don't think Dessers can.
No, I absolutely think that's true, because I think the big problem here is Cyril Dessers. There's really good points to his game, but I think, and I read this, I'm sure I read this right, I think his chance conversion is one of the lowest in the league. Like, that's pretty, like, that's very much. And if you've watched Rangers every game, which is what I have, I mean we both have, every game this season, you've come away with the same thing going, Cyril Dessers, you had the finishing ability, you would have had 40 goals. But there's a reason. I mean, we can't, people are saying, like, obviously with Cyril Dessers, you can't really be surprised at that because I think he had similar stats last season when he was in Serie A. Like, his chance conversion wasn't great. He only scored 6 goals. Do you know what I mean? He's got far more goals this season, but he's got far more service. But I think his chance conversion kind of works out the same. And that's not, we're not surprised at that, but I think we're more, Rangers need a player whose chance conversion is double what Cyril Dessers is, because you're not, how many Rangers games in the past 20 years have you been at, have you watched, where Rangers have been terrible, but a Chris Boyd was there to get you out of trouble. A Chris Boyd was there to take that killer chance at the end. You're 91st minute against St Mirren on Sunday, and you're not trusting Cyril Dessers. That's the big problem for me. Is he scores a double and he deserves a lot of credit for his performance on Sunday. I thought he was very, very good, but there's still points of his game where you're thinking you're just missing that one thing where you can really kick on. I think Danilo could have been that guy, but I think Danilo had his holes to pick as well. But
neither of them seem like out and out goal scorers to me.
No,
finisher. Neither of them seem like that. So I think, as you say there about a Chris Boyd or even an Ali McCoy from when I was younger, that seems to have been gone. I don't even think Morelos wasn't really, I would say a natural finisher. He needed a couple of chances.
I used to say Morelos was a fantastically good finisher in stages, but there was times where he was atrocious. Like, some of his finishes are terrific, but he used to miss tons of chances. I saw people saying, like, if Rangers had Antonio Cholak, you need that type of striker, but you need better. That's why I wasn't really sad to see Cholak go, because you needed a better version of him to really kick on. And that's where I think Clement should be looking at, is see somewhat, like, there's players out there that they cost a lot of money, but you need that 30 goal a season striker, because it takes the load off Tavernier as well, because Tavernier's still the man, the players, if the players are out against Indeed, you could see a lot of players just looking for Tav to go, just get the ball to him and we'll be all right. And it doesn't, that's not a long-term solution. It's all right in one game, as I say, can't do that every single game, every single season, because it comes a crop, and that's where it has in the past few weeks, is that I thought Rangers' ball retention against Dundee was absolutely pathetic. Like, it was terrible. But you also thought, it's a dodgy pitch. Do you know what I mean? It's a Wednesday night. It's been a bit of a shambles getting this game on to begin with. You understood it to a degree, but not after Ross County, where you had to come out and show something, and Rangers didn't. And that's where I liked the performance on Sunday, because it was better. There was a couple of tweaks. And I think the manager, to be fair to him, as in one thing we've kind of learned about him is maybe different to the managers that came before him. He's not afraid to make that big call. He's not afraid to put his credibility with the support in the ring, because he's earned a lot of it. He's won a trophy. Do you know what I mean? He's top the Europa League group and put Rangers in a title challenge. So he's got credibility in the bank. But he's gambled that. He's gambled that on making big calls. And this is where I really, really like him, because he could have easily just went, right, it's kind of not. Nobody really expected me to win the league anyway. Like, he's put Rangers in that position where they can challenge. They can still win the league. They have to go to Parkhead and win. But I think Clement now has realised that if I want to be accepted here, if I want to kick on, because we know Clement's ambitions is to move on from Rangers going managing the Premier League, because that is his mentality and that's what he should be thinking. This is his point where he has to go, right, I need to make these big calls here. I can't let this core get me the sack that they have the past few managers. That's where he needs to show big cojones, as it were.
You go back to talk about watershed moments, the Cantwell substitution at half-time. And I genuinely, after that game, thought, he shot himself in the foot there, but he handled it ever so well. Todd was back in the side the next game, and Todd played well that day as well. So, he has handled things well, although I do question at times some of his team selections. I think, they've left. I think they've left a lot to be desired of the last couple of weeks. I know he got it right at the weekend, but you know there's been times where we seem to have picked the wrong team and it's been too late. You talk about Dundee in that pitch. Dundee were playing on that pitch, and I thought Luke McCowan had a great game. Lyle Cameron as well. I thought played well. So you know it's all well and good making the excuses, but only making excuses if you didn't get what he wants. If he'd won the match, we wouldn't have been talking about the park. So I'd park that somewhat, but. Just to come back to Shankland to ask you a question, actually, because you spoke about recruitment and Coppin and Clermont and what they're going to do in the summer. Do you genuinely think Lawrence Shankland is the type of player they'd be looking at?
I think that type of player, I don't know. I think if they wanted him, they would have got him in January. I think that's my. I don't know how much it would have cost. I don't know if you'll get him cheaper in the summer. I think that type of player though is what you need, because you don't need that 6'4" target man anymore. You don't. You need a number 9. You need a number 9 who's not only. You need a Kyogo, and I know that sounds like I'm looking at Kyogo. How many times has Kyogo won an Old Firm game for Celtic? Like, he's played terrible in a lot of them, but he comes up in big moments. He was terrible in the last one, like non-existent. Comes up with that big moment. I'm not saying Shankland is that guy, but he's more of a play. Like more, I would personally, and I've had this conversation on my podcast. I think Bojan Miovski's a guy now. I don't think Rangers have got the money to go and get him. I think if you can somehow get a Miovski, I think Miovski's a better shout than Shankland.
Well, he's a better profile in the sense that he's younger, isn't he? So he'd have a bit of sell on. He certainly provide big moments for Aberdeen. He scored at the weekend there. So
he's kept Aberdeen up. That sounds stupid. He's kept Aberdeen in the Premiership. They don't have him. They're probably in
Championship next year.
Symbolic territory. But he's probably looking. I mean, Serie A has been quoted for him. I think he is probably going to get a bumper move in the summer. I don't think it's Rangers, but I think I'm willing to give Danilo a shot. But I think he needs. I don't think it's going to do any harm. I'm not massively keen on Dessers being around as a kind of second choice. I think you have to thank him for his year, thank him for what he's done. Like, he's done well enough, but you have to move on. You have to. I think even though Lammers is. People are saying, Sam Lammers is ripping up in Utrecht. There's a reason for that. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. Sam Lammers was not the answer. Like, people are saying, Sam Lammers next season will be a different player. Move on, and that's where I kind of fall Dessers in as well. I think Shankland is probably I just don't think he fits in terms of profile. The thing that really impressed me in the winter was with what Rangers were doing in terms of profile. Diamandi's a different type of player than Rangers have looked at in a long time. Cortez is as well. I think we will see in the summer a lot of players of that type of distinction. And there's two players that stuck out to me in terms of players Rangers have been linked with, and I don't know if Rangers were serious with these guys. The boy Dalinga that I'm sure is ripping it up in France, and Ratkov at Salzburg. They're two players who have went on and kicked on massively. You'll probably say who are those two guys.
I'm not a guy, Scott, so I don't know these players.
Rangers were linked with the two of them, right? And they were quoted maybe 4 or 5 million
a piece.
And they were 23, 22. I'll get their stats up, right, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, you can look at stats, and stats are going to be the death of me because I probably use them too much. Thijs Dalinga was a second division Dutch striker last season, right? I think he was signed for €3 million. He's now worth €15 million. Toulouse, 11 goals in 29 games. Now, Toulouse are not a good side in League One, but he's kicked on massively from where he was last season. Now, that to me, he's only 23. And Ratkov, I'm sure, is at Salzburg, who was in the Montenegrin League, has went on. And do you know what I mean? Rangers have been looking at these guys and they don't take the gamble, but they spent 4 or 5 million players who scored 6 goals last season in Serie A. Like, it's a terrible recruitment method, and that's where I've already seen glimpses.
Football won't let that happen.
He can't let that happen.
The change in player type coming in, that's not going to happen now moving forward.
No. And that's why I don't think Shankland, for me, I think the ship's sailed in Shankland, but I think you need that type of player. You need that type. If Rangers had a finisher, they'd be way ahead of Celtic this season, in my opinion. Rangers had if Rangers had the Kyogo, they'd be probably won the
But
two of
that's
the
what we
three
were all
home
saying
games.
in January. We were all saying that, and then it couldn't get done. That's the trouble.
Yeah. Did they just prioritise other positions and think that Dessers would be enough of a stopgap? Like, I don't think a lot of people were crying out for a midfielder. Like, I don't think they were. I think if you were to say you need a central mid,
goalie, if they wanted a striker, sorry, and it never happened. So I don't think they prioritise. I don't think you can sort of do that. You know, put all your eggs into one basket. They were probably looking for a striker and just couldn't get it done at the right money. The deals that we brought in were loans with either options to buy or commitment to buy in the summer. The money was kind of spread about. So if let's just say we are still talking about Shankland, if you go to Hearts and say, can we loan him for 6 months and then give you the money in the summer, it's just not happening, is it? So
no.
I'm disappointed. The poster will stay up, but I'm disappointed that we're not going to get him. So we'll have to see.
Do you actually have a Lawrence Shankland poster on the wall? I really hope you do, by the way. That would be amazing.
I'm going to leave it up to you and the listeners' imagination. My wife will not forgive me if I show you Lawrence up on the wall there. So,
brilliant.
As I say, it'll be an interesting summer, but a striker's definitely a priority, 100% now, 100%.
We've mentioned obviously the next 6 games of cup final. Those start on Sunday at St Mirren. The third trip to St Mirren this season in the league. Now, I always talk about this, and I think we spoke about it before. Winning the weekend, I think, is always important because, especially if you're up first and it's a double header, it's a very unique double header this Sunday. Rangers are on first against St Mirren, then Celtic go to Dundee. Rangers need to win that game, but not only do they need to win it, they need to give Celtic, they need to put a marker down in Celtic. They need to give Celtic something to think about because, yes, Celtic will probably go to Dundee and win, but Rangers need to give them. Do you know what I mean? Rangers don't win that game, the league's over in terms of mentality. Rangers need to put a marker down at that point and go, Celtic, beat that. Because that's the only way you're going to win you're going to win the title in these next 5 games. You need to put Celtic under every bit of pressure possible. So, Robert, how do you do that? How do you chop and change? I think it's difficult to pick Rangers teams because I don't think we know who's going to be fit and who's not. But
that's the point.
I don't think you change it too much. If Yilmaz comes in, and I would play Sterling. If Yilmaz is fit, play Sterling in midfield with Diamandi. But I wouldn't change much else.
I don't know if I'd see the manager dropping John Lundstrom, to be honest. I know the fans are probably calling for it right now. I don't know if the manager will do that. I've got question marks. We've not spoke about him for the last 50 minutes, but Ross McCausland, I think he's needing time on the ball. I don't. Sometimes I thought he was good. To be fair,
I thought he was good. To be fair, I'll give him a ice too. I thought he was good when he came on.
It's Dessers will start off the back of 2 goals. Certainly, you look at St Mirren. They've secured their top 6 place. They're going to want to hang on to 5th place, but they've not kept a clean sheet since February. They're on a really bad run of results. Really, I think the last win was Aberdeen when the guy, what's it, the big boy for FIFA? What was his name? Infantino.
That's right. Infantino. Yeah,
that was the last win. So you've got to go there. A win now is just non-negotiable. You've got to go and make sure it happens. So as you say, goal difference could be massive as well. So you've got to keep it tight at the back and just get as many goals as you can and as you say, put the pressure on Celtic. Whether or not, I think a defeat is going to be catastrophic. That it will be done, not even just mentally. That's it over. We can't afford any slips. We've got to hope that we go to Celtic Park and win well, and hope that they do a slip as well, just to make sure. Because I'd hate to be sitting there come May the 18th counting goals as they go in, because that's not going to be good for my heart rate at all. So
no, absolutely not.
I'm confident going into Sunday, more confident than what I've been last week, because we've put a performance in. We've got a win. We're through to the final. Dujon Sterling's comments were a bit strange, saying that the belief had been sucked out of the team. I heard Dessers say after the game, the belief is back and we need to run with that and get back to where we were and show we are the best team in the league.
I'm totally against that, by the way, because that you're just building up to look with it. You're just building up for Chris Sutton to make a quote tweet against you. Shut up. Just do your talking on the park. Dessers has been caught out with this so many times. Just shut up and do do that. Have that confidence in front of goal. And that's how you do your talking up here. Don't just say things that Cantwell was bad for it as well. Cantwell would say some ridiculous stuff, and we know how he was openly mocked. And I didn't have any sympathy for it because it's just I look at it going, people in Scotland are looking to slag Rangers at every opportunity. Don't give them the ammunition. And if you say, "Oh, we've got the best team in the country," and then the next day you get beat 3-2 the Ross County, you deserve to be mocked. So do your talking on the park, Cyril. Go and score a double on Sunday and shut up. That is my... I hope Dessers is watching. That's what you do up here. Go and do that.
You're going to be pinned up in the dressing room wall come Sunday morning.
I hope I am, because that's what they need. Don't come out and say to the Daily Record, like, "Oh, we're the best team in the country." You're not. Until you win the title, until you shut Celtic up, you're not. And that's what I think Clement even has that in his mind now. Just do what just go and build on what you. Sunday was a good example of this team can do this. This team can do the right things. Go and do it more often. Go and win a title. Go and win a treble and shut Celtic up. That is all Rangers fans want. Do that. That's how you get your. Do you know what I mean? That's how you get your headlines. Don't say it when you've nothing to back it up with. That's how Beale felt. That's how Beale felt with me. Beale was saying the most ridiculous stuff and had nothing to back it up. And he came a cropper. Don't follow in his suit, Cyril. Don't follow in his suit any Rangers player. Shut up, win the games. You get 6 cup finals, win all 6, and then you'll be a treble winner. You could win all 6 games and not be a treble winner because goal difference might go against them. But it's been that much of a chaotic season. That's probably what will happen. But that to me is the message for me: is 6 games, go and win them all. It's going to be extremely tough. It's going to be extremely tough to go to Tynecastle and win. It's going to be extremely tough to go to Parkhead and win. Do it at Hampden as well. Win these 6 games though, and then you've got a body of work there that's monumental, better than McLeish in 2002. If Clement can win a treble this season and somehow get this from the jaws of defeat, he will. I mean, it's probably better than 55, to be honest, in terms of an achievement.
There'll be some party.
Yeah, and on that note, Robert, probably we've given the Rangers players, we've given the Rangers fans as much of a message as we can. It is all about Sunday, mate. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll get you back on before the end of the season, and hopefully we've got something good to talk about.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Top man. Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in, and we will see you all for the next episode of the Rangers Assessment. Thank you.